everyone. We're back, and we're back with a Severance episode.
Part one.
Yeah, part one. So first and foremost, we're gonna be talking about season 1 only today. If you didn't watch season 2 yet, you're fine. There's no spoilers. We don't know anything that happens in season 2. Today we're just speculating. The reason why we did it this way is because we don't really want to. There's a lot to discuss and we don't want to be cramming it into one video. I mean one podcast. And also because it's just more interesting to talk about season 1 as it was, because there was 3 fucking years in between seasons, and I need people to realize that making 8 or 9 episodes and then disappearing for 3 years is not okay. For TV shows, it's fucking weird, dog. Okay,
it is a long time.
A lot of actors they hire too. I don't know if you guys heard of a thing called aging, but it happens. So if you're going to be like fucking taking 3 years in between each season, you're gonna end up with a cast that looks drastically different at the end of the show. And sometimes it's not the desired look, because sometimes they are genuinely don't even like, there's no time jumps or anything like that. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing at this point? Yeah. It's kind of like Michael Cera when they went back to making Arrested Development, and it was supposed to be a month after, but it was like 10 years or some shit, and he looks so different that it's ridiculous.
He looks 45.
He looks 45. He ended season 3 or whatever looking like he's 16. Came back looking 45. And they were like, oh, it's just because it was a very stressful trip for him.
No, it's just...
That's us. That's Gen Z going through the pandemic and the economic collapse.
We're all losing our hair, our teeth.
Dude, seriously. Why is everyone fucking bald? Can someone... Okay, you know what? Actually, I'll tell you. If you're wondering, if you're Gen Z and you've been wondering, why the fuck are all the people that I know who are not even 30 yet are all fucking balding, I'm gonna tell you what. It's COVID. They didn't tell you because they were like, well, those bitches are not gonna die. We don't care that they're gonna have fucking patches.
Little bald spots.
Little bald spots everywhere. They don't care. They don't give a fuck that we're gonna look not our hottest in our hottest years. They don't give a fuck. They're like, actually, we're gonna start restricting your rights so you are forced to procreate with each other even if you don't like each other. Even if you don't find each other attractive anymore. We're gonna force it.
They literally put us through the Michael Cera syndrome. Like,
straight up,
all of us started out as cute twinks and then ended up experiencing twink death at a ripe age of 20.
Like, seriously, I think that's exactly what happened, and I'm horrified by all of this, honestly. And if you're thinking, why am I balding or something like that, you're not the only one, because every time I go on the train, on C-Train or SkyTrain, everyone in the fucking, like, what is it called? Like one of the carts? A cart? Everyone on the train cart. Bitch, why is like 75 to 80% balding?
I wake up in the morning, go look in the mirror, and get frightened every time.
Like, see? I love it. I love it. I'm not pissy at all. Anyway, so we've got a lot to talk about. I want to mention a couple of things. First of all, let's go through the episodes real quick without... I'm just going to say some of the observations that I had about it. Then we'll talk about the art direction and specific things that really contribute a lot to the way that this show is looking and whatever. Oh god, there's so much to discuss.
I know. Is there spoiler and spoiler alert?
Spoiler alert for a show that's been out for 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, and honestly, I'm the type of person who doesn't give a fuck about spoilers. You can spoil season 2 to me and I wouldn't give a fuck. I'm still gonna watch it because, like, I wanted to. In the first episode, I thought it was really funny how, because she woke up in that room or whatever, she's asking, am I livestock? Like, did you grow us to just like eat us or something? And you know what? They did. Because it's not actually butchering situation, but don't you think it's pretty accurate anyway?
I mean, metaphorically, they are getting chewed up and spit out, so...
Yeah. Anyway, the thing that you're gonna notice immediately, and this is jumping into the visual aspects of the show, is that the show is very fond of symmetry. I personally think that, honestly, if you're not going to be, if the shot is not interesting in terms of color, it needs to be interesting in terms of value, in terms of like shadows and light. If it's not interesting in terms of shadow and light, it needs to be interesting in terms of lines, symmetry or asymmetry. Basically everything needs to be intentional, and I think that this show is pretty good at doing that, remembering that it is a visual medium. It's not just a fucking, amateurish type of situation where you don't know how to frame anything and nothing is done purposefully. I think that every shot is treated pretty respectfully in that regard, that it's not a waste of time to look at.
At the very least, it never offends my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And
which a lot of shows do.
A lot of shows do. A lot of media in general does. I have just released a video talking about that most movies look like lime lips now. A few things immediately from the first episode in terms of the setup, which are confusing things about this show, is that it's really hard to tell what era it's set in. It's supposed to be 2020 because I think on his ID it said 2020. I thought it was really, really fucking weird because all of the technology is really old. I do understand the technology being old inside of the Lumen building. I totally get that because I think that it's kind of, falling in line with the fact that they shouldn't be able to contact anybody, other things like that. There's a lot of cassette tapes, but you don't really see any radios or anything like that. Like nothing that can be, I guess if you know really well how to do this, you could fucking put a radio together yourself. But in terms of just like, easily accessible technology that could be used to communicate or to leak information, I feel like all of it is it's
very starter pack technology.
Yeah, it's like very starter pack. But
you know what it reminds me of though? It automatically reminded me of that retrofuturism, that especially that fashion exhibition, and they were like,
oh my god, yes,
girl.
yeah, this is like a view of the 70s and 80s of what people expected the 2020s and 2030s to look like back in the day. Very much retrofuturist. I actually love retrofuturistic aesthetic.
Me too.
But I do understand that there's like a very strong visual difference between the inner world of the company and the outer world of the company. The inner world is very much 60s, 70s in terms of decor. I would say 60s mostly, like a lot of furniture and stuff like that type of technology. Obviously, you can see that it's not actually where the technology is at because they do have those chips and whatever. Just in terms of logic, it makes sense why they would have old technology inside but newer technology outside. But for example, his car is really old. It seems like if you're doing a job that requires severance and you actually went for it and whatever, there would be a bit more of a financial incentive there. It's crazy that there isn't, but
that's
it's also
so accurate.
It's so accurate, bitch, because we have
so
to
real.
be doing such like extreme shit now. Like the fact that I literally, when I'm applying to like galleries and whatever, and I'm looking at the requirements and they're asking for a master's degree but offering you $18 an hour, Canadian, by the way. For you Americans, Canadian dollars. Do you know how little that is? Just like split it in half, that would be like what you would get in US dollars. Okay, maybe not half. It's 70%.
That'd be $12.48 USD.
And they're asking for a master's degree, bitch.
That's like how many
in
years?
Arts.
That's like 4, 5, 6 years. 6 or 7 years minimum.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years minimum of schooling. And they're like, do you want $1 more than minimum wage?
It's like, girl.
How about $1 more than minimum wage? It's insane.
I'd rather work mopping at a restaurant and then purposely slip and break my legs so I can get calm. I make more money that way.
Dude, like it's genuinely disturbing. In any case, basically, visually speaking, those two are very different. The lighting outside is a lot more natural, obviously. Like they don't they really emphasize the fluorescent lighting, but also the really bright lighting, even when they're having like dance parties, which are like 5-minute dance breaks or whatever the fuck, and they have those like really blaring lights. All of those lights are very fluorescent. Like if it's pink, it's like highlighter pink, if it's green, it's highlighter pink, but also green, sorry,
highlighter green.
No, everything's highlighter pink, bitch.
Yeah, it's just like super saturated and sterile at the same time.
Yeah,
like, for the innies, not the outies.
And I would say that for the outies, it's a lot more earth tone. It's a lot more grounded. And even the way that they're filming, there's a lot more up close shots than shots that are focusing on the geometry of the space.
It's more naturalistic.
Yeah, like when
Yeah.
they're filming Innies, it's mostly like they focus a lot on shots that are all about the geometry of the space and of
Hmm.
objects, how they're placed within the shot. And there's one technique that they use over and over and over and over again, which in my opinion is a visual representation of not just switching from Innie to Audi or Audi to Innie, but also when Irv, for example, is having those moments where he's seeing like ink or this goo
Go, yeah,
going
dripping.
everywhere, dripping and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Definitely, even during those moments when his consciousness is being kind of crossing over or like having a bit of a
Hmm.
malfunction because he's kind of confusing,
Merging.
he's merging
Yeah.
or at least it's implied. We don't know what happens in second season, so I don't know if that's actually what's happening, but I think so because clearly the paint that he's using at home to paint the corridor on the testing etage, what is it called?
The department.
No, floor, the
Oh,
testing floor.
I was like, wait,
Yeah,
what?
etage.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's painting that same floor, that same corridor that Mark's wife is going down to go
Hmm.
into the testing room, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so this bitch has been there. Irv has been there. So Irv somehow is a testing subject. Like he's not just one of the innies.
Yeah, he's definitely been through some.
Yeah, and the paint, the one that he's using, it looks like was like something gray. The black paint that's when you're like spread it out, it becomes dark blue. You know what I mean, right? Like the
I
the
know,
the
exactly
paint
what you mean.
name. Yeah, like I know it's that bitch.
No, it's none of these. Okay, anyways, we're gonna have to skip this because it's gonna take a hot minute.
Payne's Gray.
Payne's Gray.
Paynes.
Payne's Gray?
Payne's
Okay,
Gray.
that is not what I was thinking of.
It's clear that this is kind of what they're trying to portray here, that it's crossing over, and I'm guessing it's because he's a test subject as well. I'm gonna put in screenshots because I took screenshots to really explain this well,
Hmm.
but basically there's a moment where they're using the same camera technique as the one that they're using in the elevator when they're going from the first floor to the severed floor. There
Hmm.
is this technique that they're doing where it feels like the perspective is changing, right? Like their heads are starting looking a little bit differently and whatever. Everything kind of moves a bit weird and it looks like the background is being pushed
Pushed.
towards you
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I noticed that too in the very first episode when he's like going up to finally do his job. In the beginning parts, it kind of looks like you are like following him around almost. Anyways,
Yeah,
continue
but
on.
like the specific effect that they do in the elevator.
Yeah, it's like it looked like they slightly went from under and then went forward, like so it's like face on. That's what it looked like to me because his head shape totally changed.
Oh no, that so yeah, so I was gonna explain how it's usually
Hmm.
done. It's actually interesting that they decided to do it this way because it's not digital as it usually is, you know, when like
Hmm.
usually we're used to it now being all digital. This is a technique where basically you use the lens and you zoom in on the lens, but you're moving backwards the camera
Mm.
or the
Hmm.
other way around when you're basically zooming out with the
Out.
lens, but you're moving closer
Move.
with the camera. So you're
Right.
basically changing the actual ratio. So from like for example 50 millimeter lens you're going to a 17 millimeter, right? But you
Hmm.
moved forward or you moved backward, so it literally morphs your head. It looks freaky as shit and it makes it look like the walls are either moving closer or further apart, and technically nothing's changing. Technically
Hmm.
the entire scene is still the same. Technically the objects are all at the same distance to each other, and like they really love focusing and refocusing within the same shot. They would like focus on one character and then move the focus to the next character instead of reframing, having like another frame to film that character. They really love to move the depth of field either from the front to the back or whatever.
Hmm.
It's a lot easier to do now because you could do it digitally in terms of while you're filming, the cameras are really good at controlling the movement. So you can like, for example, have it on like an arm that's programmed and
Hmm.
you can just have the millimeters on the lens change while at the same time the arm is moving at the same speed, so you can always get the same effect because it's
Hmm.
usually not that easy to do when you're just like a human being just like
Yeah,
turning shit and
handheld.
moving, right? Like you can't really know for sure what the speed is going to be. They might have done it a bit more manually like just sat somebody down on a trolley or a dolly. I think it's dolly or something shit like that. Anyway.
Yeah, Dolly. Yeah.
And then I also noticed that they do it even with Irv's black goo. So like the goo is like coming down the fucking ceiling.
Cubicle. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they don't just change the focus. They don't just move from the goo to Irv or from Irv to the goo. Such a weird goo. But it's also, you can see in the background, Irv is getting stretched out when they switch the focus. So it's definitely also them moving the camera and moving the millimeters to basically make the shot looks like it's framed the same way, but all the perspectives are getting like fucking skewed as shit.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool way to show this two existences kind of
like colliding a little bit.
Yeah. And I wonder how, like, if they do the same shit in season 2 and if they're gonna expand on it and come up with the more interesting ways of using it, or if it's just gonna be an elevator thing and like sometimes with like goo or some shit, you know. Like, I wonder if they're gonna try and play around more with that.
We'll find out soon.
We will. I enjoyed the experience actually, because you know what? I was like, oh, I gotta watch this shit, and I gotta like, because people were asking me to talk about. Mostly it was like comments on my latest video on my main channel, because people were like, well, if you're gonna be talking about movies, and if you're gonna be talking about cinematography, how about talk about Severance? And I was like, why? Like, who gives a fuck? And then I watched it and I was like, okay, I get it. First of all, yeah, it's well made, and we will talk about our reservations about the creators of the show. But I don't want to ruin our mood right now.
Yeah.
To be honest,
I also just love how like the actual set, like how they made it, that the like how the proportions are so weird, but like, you know, it's an office. Like it's such a classic office space with the what do you call those ceilings with the lights?
Oh, the panel lighting.
Yeah, those panels, right? Like usually in so old school office to me, they're
It's
so
so
cheap.
old school, true.
But it's like theirs are so much bigger than what they actually are in real life.
And so much lower, right?
Lower, and then the
so much lower.
And the cubicles are like so fucking tiny. Like the desks are so small.
And they're like right in the middle, like smack down in the middle.
So trippy in a way.
Yeah, but you know what? I really love the use of green. Such a forced thing, like trying to, like, because everyone knows green is like calming or whatever. It's like such a forced thing. I don't know, something about people using signifiers of wellness or signifiers of a good life or of the outside is so dystopian that it always will give you the heebie-jeebies. It's kind of like those grounding mats that people are buying when they're living in apartments. And it's like, bitch, go outside, take off your shoes and stand on the ground. But so because scary. You're like living, like, for example, in New York or something like that, you're like, I'm not standing on the ground outside. So they're like buying mats, and it's like so stupid. Like, it's genuinely dumb as shit. But this is like the type of dystopian shit that we have arrived at this point.
So dark.
It's fucking weird. It's weird as hell. If I do say so myself. Wait, let me actually see my notes, because I don't want to like miss a lot of stuff, but I actually really like the idea of them exploring grief and how people try to avoid it by becoming severed and stuff like that, but at the same time also exploring the fact that your body still carries this shit. Like, even when you're trying, because it's kind of like a parallel like to how you can sometimes dissociate or like forget things, but your body still carries that stress.
Yep, your body keeps count, you know, of what you've gone through. And
how he's like, oh, I'm happy for 8 hours a day because I don't remember my wife dying, right? Well, at the same time, from the beginning, that guy what's his name again, Devin or whatever? Devin, yeah. He was telling Mark, he was like, you look like you're hungover.
Yeah.
And like, they don't even know whether they are or not. They just feel shitty. And it's like the same thing with PD afterwards, telling him that you would always come in with your eyes really red, and we would always wonder.
Yeah.
Like,
and
what's
we
going
know for
on?
a fact that he's like crying every time he comes into work or something, or just like grieving so much more heavily.
He's just crying, like he was just crying all the time, I would assume, like randomly, not even because of work. But I think that the reason why, in my opinion, is not just that he wanted to escape the pain as much as again, he's under duress in a society where you cannot grieve without losing your entire livelihood. Like, you can't take time off. You just can't. So he went back to teaching 3 weeks after his wife died, and he just couldn't do it. So he was like, might as well go and get severance, so at least I can have a paycheck while I'm grieving.
Yeah. Well, at least
Because
I could.
how
It's
else are you gonna do it?
yeah, at least he could freaking survive, which is
Yeah,
like also so scary that like that is such a reality for a lot of
yeah.
people. I've had to go through that at some point where I had to pretty much choose to leave a job, like quit my job that I'd been working at for years because I ran out of vacation, like paid time off, not vacation, but paid. I used everything up, and then I found out I had to have surgery, and they wouldn't like. I had no option.
It's a really weird world that's set up in that show because yeah, the I don't even we haven't seen any proper hospitals yet. We've seen
Hmm.
the ambulance come and pick up PD when they found him, but overall, we keep seeing weird holistic shit that's creeping me the fuck out with his
In.
sister,
Hmm.
her being pregnant, and her husband being such a weird ass person who's like putting up kelp around the room and whatever the fuck. She's giving birth naturally without painkillers
Hmm.
in some hut. I understand that this is like a retreat spot or whatever the fuck, but it's weird as shit. And on top of it all, meeting a woman
The
who,
lactation.
oh, lactation. Yeah, no, the one that she met when she was giving, when she was almost giving birth, like she was already like
Hmm.
dilating and whatever the fuck. And
Yeah.
she met a woman in a cottage or whatever the fuck,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
right across. And that woman was so confused because she was like, oh, like, are you guys rich or something? Like, this place is crazy. And that woman was like kind of caught off guard, I guess. And at
Hmm.
first when you look at them, you just think that she's very, how do I say this, like pretentious maybe. So that's why
Yeah.
she's kind of looking down on her or something along those lines. And then she meets her in the next episode or something, talks to her and asks her, how's William? Because that woman told her, what are you going to call your child? And she said,
Right.
William. And then she's talking to her and she says his name is like Bradley or some shit.
Hmm.
Immediately, I was like, oh, damn. They started to do severance for women
So that
giving
they could
birth.
giving birth. Yeah, she chose to do it, so she wouldn't have to go through the pain of giving birth.
And it's so crazy because that other version of her only will know that.
Right? Which is so weird. It's so bizarre.
There's a lot of like ethical things that they kind of bring up because there's a lot of ethical issues that people are worried about in the world that they set up. A lot of people are talking about the fact that you could be doing crazy horrible shit and there's no they call it moral self-governance. A person wouldn't even like quit or anything like that if they're doing something crazy and then going back home and completely forgetting about it, yada yada. But it's really interesting to hear those conversations because the way that they were talking about it, the infantilization part specifically, is what's killing me. It's because whenever you try to talk about ethical issues of the effects of capitalism and capitalism in general, and
Hmm.
when you're talking about ethical issues that could be either negated or they have to be somehow controlled while we're trying to get a better life for ourselves outside of capitalism, people get really fucking angry about it and they're like, stop infantilizing me, I'm not a victim, and other things like that. And it's like, just because you don't have a choice whether to be exploited or not, you have a choice in how you're going to be exploited maybe, but you don't have a choice in exploitation, does not mean that this is a conversation that we shouldn't be having and stuff like that. It's literally the conversation that we had recently with Anora when I
Yeah.
brought up issues with sex work and other things like that. And there's a lot of people who are pissed at me. Not really, not on our podcast, but I
Hmm.
was talking to somebody on TikTok and they were talking to me, by the way, we need to discuss that as well, as if I'm on the opposite team, which is what's pissing me off the most about this. It's like, if you are someone who has progressive leftist politics,
Hmm.
we mean actual left, which is like, if you don't know, the political spectrum has the like right and left, right? And on the right, on the very far right, it's Nazis, there's Republicans, there's and the ones that are closest to the center on the right side are liberals,
Hmm.
liberal ideas, Democrats, neoliberalism,
Yeah.
still colonization, but let's try and make it look
A
ethical.
little. Yeah.
Like, we're gonna
Let's.
talk about the ethical issues. We're not gonna fix it, but we will talk about it.
Yeah.
And then on the left is everything that is like anti-capitalist. Okay, so if you're not anti-capitalist, you're not a leftist. I'm sorry to bring this up to you because apparently people are getting, like, they're having existential crisis and they're blaming it on whomever is going to point out to them that there's a political spectrum and there are terms that we have created to understand each other that already exist and they existed before America. So you have got to figure out the political spectrum that people are talking about internationally if you want to have this conversation. You can't just take this Overton window of America where your left is the right, just less right than the very far right, and then be like, actually, I'm a leftist. To you.
Yeah.
To you. That's just saying. Like, that's not how it works for everybody else in the world, okay? Please,
to you and you alone.
Get it together. So it was really interesting to see them actually talking about the infantilization specifically, because that was the conversation that we had with like the sex work stuff. There are like, sex work is still going to be intertwined with patriarchy, even though you can still choose it in this world and it's not inherently more or less exploitative than some other jobs or whatever. Like there are degrees to it, and it's not a black or white conversation because it's a very difficult thing. And if you don't see how it's related and informed by patriarchy, I need you to understand that just your feelings are not facts. There are statistics that prove you wrong, and you ignoring all of those children who are, and like they're like, oh, there's like difference between being trafficked and being a sex worker. I agree. However, there are so many things that we are conditioned into believing to be the norm because of the system that we're living in. There are many things that I don't notice as an oppression or as a bad thing because I'm socialized in the capitalist world. It does not mean that it's not ethically dubious. And if we were going to bring it up, it's not going to be weird to like actually confront that, you know? Like, please stop jumping on people's throats because there is minuscule differences that we have. We're going to have, there's still going to be a spectrum of opinions, even on the left. Just accept it. Like, be a normal person. I don't know.
If you're somebody who's going to nitpick to that degree, to that extreme, fighting a bunch of people who you don't need to fight, who at the core have the same goals in a way as you're doing exactly what the system wants you to do, which is not to focus on them and to just wreak havoc amongst your peers. You know what? That's probably why we haven't solved anything, guys. Like,
no,
it's
I
really
think so.
simple.
I think
really
so
simple.
too. Yeah, because the thing is, like, even when I was talking to them about it, I'm having a discussion, they're talking to me like I'm the enemy. And I have to continuously tell them, if you want somebody, because they keep on addressing me as like, you just have whorephobia. First of all, I hate that term. Don't call sex workers whores, even if you are a sex worker. It's just weird. Why? Why? Second of all, when we were talking about this, I'm like, dude, if you want somebody who's gonna call you bad morally or who's gonna bring up some kind of like religious topics or whatever, because they were like, oh, pilgrims. And I'm like, bitch, I'm Eastern European. What the fuck are you talking about? Even crazy. If you look at Russia in terms of like having a religion and whatever, we were Orthodox. We have never been anywhere near Catholicism. I can't, like, I'm literally like my fucking, I sound like Daffy Duck. Anyway.
Yeah.
Basically, what I'm saying here is you have to stop talking to people as if they're the enemy, especially right out of the gate. And second of all, sometimes things that are working for you are still not good for overall cause.
Exactly.
Like, we need to get it through our heads, okay? Like, sometimes it's not the same thing. Anyway, regardless of that, I just really thought it was really, really interesting to see how they brought it up, this term specifically, infantilizing, because it was really interesting where he's like talking to these kids on the street, like they're probably like 20 or something like that, very idealistic, and they're like with their leaflets about stopping the severance and whatever, and he's like screaming at them, being like, what, you think they didn't make that decision and stuff like that? And it's so similar, the conversation is so similar to all of the ethical issues that we're usually addressing when we're talking about, for example, military too, like enlisting and things like that, right? Whatever. So it was really interesting that they used that word specifically. I really thought it was interesting. But also the holistic weird shit and the natural approach was really weird. And especially because of his sister's husband, it's so strange. Like, he's so like progressive in quotations, but then he's the one who's crying on her stomach when she's literally dilating, being like, I'm so afraid I'm gonna be a bad father, girl. And she's like, I'm gonna go find coffee, and he's staying and he's taking a nap. She's giving birth. Maybe you should go get a coffee. Like
Literally.
the abuse there and the not even noticing dynamic between like men and women in that environment is so crazy.
Yeah, he is one of the most realistic characters in all of it. Like
Honestly,
he
dude.
is like he is like 99% of people. Sorry, okay? Not you guys,
Sorry to
not you guys
say.
who not the fairies because y'all have brains, but I'm
Yeah, not the
saying
fairies, not the fairies.
he's like one of those people who are like a pseudo philosopher, a pseudo artist, a pseudo psychologist. He just says like a bunch of key terms, mumbo jumbo. Just like fully has this veneer that he's trying to keep upkeep, but he's actually the dumbest person
Dude,
imaginable.
Severance is a comedy. I swear to
It
God.
is
Because
black
the
comedy, man.
clips, dude, the clips of them reading his book at work, the innies, and the
Yeah.
words like sliding across the screen, and they're so funny.
The
It's like
bullies bullies are just bulls and
and the
lies.
lies.
It's so good.
It's so fucking funny. I was sitting like I was genuinely like crying laughing because it was just so fucking funny. But also I think it's so interesting and so real that for innies who are literally like 2 years old, 2 weeks old, to them, this book, when there's nothing else available, because it's so
Yeah.
crazy and so different from the only books that they're allowed to read, that it becomes an actual like tool for them.
Yeah,
It
it's like the
becomes
Bible.
important to
It's
them.
like it gives them levity. It reminds me of, you know, when you just need a brain break and you're like maybe you're doing your work, you're doing your job, you just came home from work. You're so fucking tired and depressed, so you go look at a meme and it's
Yeah,
like
but I feel
that's
like
what it
they
feels like.
didn't see it as funny. To them, it was
No,
genuine.
yeah, it was genuine. They actually
Like
saw it
to
as
them, genuinely, they're like, "Wow, this is like gospel, basically." Like they were
yeah,
like, and it's so interesting that in this type of vacuum, any ideas that are not ideas of what's his name,
Kier,
Kier.
no,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, Kier,
Kier.
Kier. That like any ideas that are not Kier ideas are already so groundbreaking and already like offer so much in terms of like it's crazy because it's literally inciting them to actually do something about their situation, even though this
Yeah,
book is bad. Like
giving
it's
them
bad.
agency.
And that's
Yeah,
why in the last episode, I think it's the last episode, yeah, like Mark S,
yeah,
when he's on the outside and he's talking to him, he's genuinely telling him that I actually loved it. It was really like like informative and transformative for me. And he means it. I don't think that part is funny as much as it's just like it's so real
hey,
that
let's
sometimes
not.
stupid shit could be transformative because it offers you a new perspective.
Yeah, but hey, let's not discredit memes for not being life-changing and informative. You know what?
I agree, but they
When
are
I
created
first
to be funny. This guy was earnest.
Hey, no, this was an earnest reaction when I
This
read
is camp
that.
movies, bitch. This
Yeah,
is camp. This is camp. That's
when
why it's
I
so transformative.
it was transformative when I read that meme that was like, or I think even you sent it to me, that was like, if you can't have me with no money, you can't have me with $60. That changed my life.
In the next episode, we also get the replacement of personal history with others' history and how you kind of need this constant storytelling to make you continue on doing things. So that's why, to me, it's connected to celebrity culture. I think that a
Hmm.
lot of people will probably be like, no, it's about the leaders of movements like in communism. And it's like, no, bitch, like we're talking about capitalism. This is as capitalist as it fucking gets. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how to explain it to you in any other way, but this is as
Actually,
capitalist as it gets.
yeah.
And
It's
and
crazy
on
the amount of people who, if you search up severance explainer analysis, the amount of people who think it's not
yeah, they
about
also love to
capitalism.
separate it, you know? They also love to separate it and be like, no, it's corporate culture, corporate culture. It has nothing to do with capitalism, just corporate culture. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
bitch, no, bitch. Because even if the creators were trying to only talk about corporate culture, sorry to say, but you inadvertently talked about your entire fucking system. It's kind of getting introduced multiple times, but it never gets like, it's never clear why the fuck they have this four core tempers or something they call it. And then there's also nine beliefs, you know, like the 10 commandments and stuff like that, kind of like that similar
Yeah.
idea. Oh, so in episode 4, I was like, Helena knows more than every other Audi just by her video because of how sure she was about her being a person and the Innie not being a person. I was like,
Hmm.
not a single Audi like Mark or Irv or anyone knows what the fuck is going on in terms of who that other Innie is.
Yeah.
I thought it was really weird when she attempted to end her life. When Mark saw her, it was so weird to me because like they were like, "Oh, can you make your eyes kind? Do you know how to make your eyes kind?" And I'm like, "Fuck, you guys are fucking psychopaths, first of all. Second of all, the way that he did it, Helly, had no reaction to it. That happened in episode 5, and for some reason for the rest of the season I was suspicious of Helly because I was like, is it Helena or Helly? Because it's really weird that her reaction wasn't like, what the fuck is with your face? Like, why did you
Yeah.
make your face like that? It didn't turn out to be anything
Something,
like,
yeah, but
yeah.
something was smelling fishy. Like there was something. I guess we discover it soon after.
Yeah, I
So,
was like, I literally wrote in my notes, I was like, why is her reaction to his crazy eyes is like that? It's
yeah.
either not Helly or she got a lobotomy. Like, I seriously just don't get like what the fuck happened. Then they find those goats,
Yeah, the goat department.
and I'm like, okay. Um,
If I were in that company, that's where I would be working for sure.
I don't know about that because the way that he was reacting to them showing up there and he's like they're not ready yet and he was like really distraught. I feel like they're sacrificing them or some shit. So I wouldn't want to work there because they're too
Oh.
cute. I don't want to do all that.
Oh. Yeah, you're
So
right. It was kind of suspicious.
yeah. Anyway, so then in episode 6, we see an altar that um
Oh, yeah. What's her
that
face?
Cobel,
Cobell has for
yeah.
cure or whatever.
Yeah, and in that episode we see that there's like literally a ticket to a carnival.
No, mama.
I don't know what that means. It's just like I stopped the video because I was like I want to see what's on that altar. And I was like carnival bitch.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that scene actually made me think a lot of I had a lot of different like suspicions and thoughts about her afterwards because also like she knows who she is. She has a what do you call it? Overtime suspension. I can't forget what they called it.
I think that she's just not severed. So
Yeah,
she doesn't
or maybe
have to
she's not.
have it switched on or off. But she's also went to this academy for girls for
Hmm.
Kier or Egan Academy for Girls.
She has her. She also has in that altar scene. You can see like some a wristband or a medical wristband or
Yeah, and I don't know
paperwork.
what the fuck that's about.
I don't know. Hypothesis. People are saying, oh, it could be her mom, and actually she's trying to get this like giant revenge
I think
on.
that's actually what was happened with Irv. I
Yeah,
think
I think.
Irv's dad, like he's trying to get revenge for his dad. But I think that
Mm,
with Cobell, I actually think that maybe there was something. Maybe she had a child, and I might be wrong as fuck.
I thought it was a
Actually,
feed. I thought it was a breathing tube.
that's what I thought too. I was like, it's either a breathing tube or it's one of those pumping things.
Interesting.
Artwork wise, there's so many artworks on the walls. Basically, there's a whole department that's for artworks, or maybe not artworks, but like visuals and whatever. Irv falls in love with Bert. Bert works in that department, and both of those departments basically got paintings made, turned out to be put there by one of the guys, like Milchik, by Mr.
Hmm.
Milchik. They were trying to basically make the departments afraid of each other
Yeah.
by showing them, like showing one department that it's like the same painting, but they have those cards, like department cards, and
Yeah.
the guys who are like working with algorithms or whatever the fuck, they have blue badges, but the ones that are in the design department, they have green ones. They found a painting.
War
The green
propaganda.
guys, yeah, it's basically nationalism kind of.
Yeah. It's just like
Um,
nationalist propaganda. Like, don't forget, this is what happens when you start mingling. Like,
Yeah, it's
okay.
like they are the bad guys, you are the good guys, and they
Guys,
just
yeah.
switch the cards, the colors of the cards on the printouts,
Yeah,
but the
so
message is like the exact same. That it's the
yeah.
opposite team who did all that. They have this whole like design department. They had to tell everyone that there's only 2 of them, but there's like 8
Hmm.
for some fucking reason again. And then when they come in, it's so weird because it's like why even hide that if when they come in and they ask what you guys do here on this floor or in this department, they don't even know what to tell you. It's still not like, okay, you separated them, but they still don't know shit. Like, even if they
Hmm.
would be together, they wouldn't know what to tell each other.
Each
In any
other,
case,
yeah.
there's a
The
painting that
the
Irv
blind
is
leading the
looking at.
blind.
Yeah. There's a painting that Irv is looking at when he talks to Bert for the first time, I assume. Or maybe it's not the first time, but it's the first time in the show. I don't know if they met before or not, but there's this painting where there's this guy with a whip, and it's like, I think it's Cat 9 with like like the whip that has 9 ends or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And there's 4 characters, and it looks vaguely biblical, as if it's like kind of God punishing the people. It looks really strange. There's like one character that has a head of a, I think it's a lamb.
Let me see it.
It
I
might
can't
be a
remember.
fucking goat, but it
Let's.
looks really strange. In any case, so then I kind of forgot about that painting because it happened in like episode 3 or some shit like that. Like it happened early on, I think. And then in the last episode, when Devin is eating the waffles at the Kier house
Yeah.
recreation or whatever, first of all, fucking weird as shit. That
That
whole
was
sequence,
scary. That was the scariest part for me.
it was weird. I
Yeah.
mean, you finish eating the waffles and it says, now go to like the founder's bed. I don't think so, actually. What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah,
Paper
paper
mache
mache Harry.
head that you have to put on of
Yeah.
Kier.
And those 4 dancers who vaguely look like the paintings.
I don't think it's even vague, girl. I think it's them.
Yeah,
I
I
think
know
it's
it
like,
is
and
them.
I actually don't know. To me, one of them looks like a bride. One of
Yeah.
them looks like a lamb
Or I
or
think
a
a
goat.
ram or goat. I think it's a goat because the goat symbolism is pretty heavy in this. And you know what? If you're Christian, Catholic, whatever, y'all know what the goat is.
I
Like
think they made a
that's a
mistake. The creators might have made a mistake because the head that they have given to that character is definitely a lamb. Like the horn on that character, it's curled in, and goats don't have curled in.
goats have the sharp ones.
Yeah, they have just like straight ones. So I think they just made a mistake because they look very similar if you don't look at the horns, I think. But regardless of that, that was a really weird, like it was surreal, very David Lynchian.
Yeah,
Like it's
but
very
yeah.
much that.
It gave
It's
Stanley Kubrick to me. It gave like Eyes Wide Shut.
post-surrealist movies.
Just like funny how he's eating fucking waffles. I'm sorry.
I know. I was actually wondering the entire time. I was like, did they poison it? Like me just like constantly being like, no, they're gonna fucking kill him. Like I swear to
Are
God.
they?
Also, I found it kind of underwhelming, or not underwhelming, but kind of confusing as to why that was the trigger that kind of made people innies understand that there's something wrong or whatever. Well, when they go to break room, right, and they just have to read the same lines, and then
Hmm.
PD shows that recording to Mark on the outside, and it looks like, I thought it was going to be some kind of torture, but it was just reading that line, which is like really interesting to me because I don't know, it doesn't seem not severe enough, but I guess that if you're living in the complete lack of context, I feel like that wouldn't be that much of a punishment, really. I don't give a fuck, okay?
Okay, I'm just
Like
gonna.
I'm putting numbers in a box on the screen, or I'm reading these lines. It's still boring as shit.
Both
Both are
are
boring as
yeah,
balls.
equally bad.
I don't think that it just doesn't seem different enough, I guess. Anyway,
Hmm.
Cobell is so weird. Her wailing while driving a car recklessly was crazy. She's such an unhinged woman. It's insane. It's kind of really fun to watch a woman that age be so unhinged.
Yeah.
Like it's rare to see.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting take on grief as well. The way that Mark doesn't know whether to talk or not to talk about her to other people. It seems like a very kind of, like, it's quite an emotional moment where he's putting the photo back together. You can tell how far he is from being okay or healed or even ready for another relationship when he's trying to like rip the photo apart in front of the new girl,
Yeah.
and she's just like leaving, and he's like, oh really? And it's like, bitch, yeah, really, because you're
Yeah.
literally unstable and you're an alcoholic and you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Of course she's gonna leave you to deal with your shit because,
Hmm.
yeah, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's not
I'm
healthy to avoid talking about her, but it's also not healthy to only talk about her. You have to be doing this shit, like you have to go through it, you know? And I feel like it's really interesting that they're showing all that. But it's so crazy to find out that she's a shrink at Lumen.
oh yeah,
Like, what's the point? Like, I don't understand why they had to
do that.
kill her to get her. Why
Yeah.
not just get a random woman who signs up for Severance anyway? Because like clearly there are people who sign up for it, like Mark.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like that's gonna be a big thing for season 2 that we're gonna
I
find
think
out.
so. I think so. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like really
I thought that too.
interesting.
It's just like okay, random, but
Why? And also,
which
Cobell is so obsessed with them. When they were talking, she literally
hmm
purposefully made Mark go down to her office for a wellness check, right? When she knew that it was the last day of
Gemma?
Gemma. because she knew that it was Gemma's last day before she went back into the testing, whatever. And
Yeah,
it's so strange.
Dr.
Like she was
Casey.
watching them on the screen and she's literally like holding her breath. She's obsessed with them. And
Hmm.
it's so weird. Milchik is like, well, isn't it good that they don't recognize each other? Doesn't it mean that the chip is working? And she's like, well, yeah. But it's so weird. Like she's obsessed with them.
Yeah, there's gotta be
There's got to be a reason.
some connection between those three characters.
It seems real weird. Like I was like, okay, all right, I guess. Anyway, and then in
Hmm.
the last episode, it was so weird, where she's like they're trying to meet their quota, and then they meet their quota, and Helly is watching that video, and this Kier character is like, there's this weird animation from like the 80s, right? Well, not 80s, but it kind of like
8-bit.
8-bit,
8-bit.
8-bit
Yeah.
animation, and he's like literally telling her like, you did it, Haley R. I love you. And it's so weird. I was like, what the fuck is this? What the
It's
fuck is
actually,
this?
it's truly giving the LDS church. Like, it's so
Yeah.
similar. They even did that back in the day where they would send or like they made like a kids TV show and like
It's
would
so
it's
weird.
yeah.
Dude, it's so creepy. And then after that, it's so weird. He's flying away. That made me laugh so hard. Like the way that he was spinning around, flying away. I lost it. I thought it was the funniest shit ever. And I'm just sitting there like, how did no one laugh at this? Why didn't Haley just burst out laughing? Like, are you fucking serious? Another thing about the visuals too, the opening sequence. I was gonna say that the animation looks so fucking weird, and I realized that it's because a lot of the animation where, like, for example, there's like a bunch of marks in a cup and
Hmm.
like it tips over and he like falls out or whatever, or when he's holding a balloon with a bunch of marks kind of being the balloon. It's so weird because it looks exactly like when you turn on gravity in 3D modeling.
Oh yeah.
The movement is exactly the same. I feel like they just kind of like filmed the natural in game, or not in game, in program
Hmm.
gravity without rigging it.
Right.
Like the
Yeah.
way that it just flops around looks
Yeah.
exactly like when you turn on gravity and you haven't fucking rigged it well,
Yeah. And it's
and
just
it just like
really
does weird
amateur.
shit.
Hmm.
It's like exactly that. I feel like that's how they got it, honestly. And in the last episode, another thing that was really interesting visually speaking is with the lights changing and everything, and Irv looking at this image of Kier and reading the passages and whatever the fuck, it reminded me of Selena Gomez's music video Back to You, when she's also just standing there and the lights are changing at a party and she's
Yeah.
like, oh, I think I'll go back to you, and it's like just keeps on like, it looked so comical to me because it's like just Irv being Selena. Like,
Yeah.
I'll put it next to each other in the video version of the pod. They're so weird on the inside to the point where it's like, I think you guys are making it more difficult for yourself to actually have those people work for you without any trouble. Because why
Hmm.
are you weird like that?
Yeah, why the fuck are you guys freaks?
Why is there like a this erotic dance show with massive paper mache heads?
And you're eating waffles while watching it.
Yeah, like don't you think that's gonna make Innie's kind of weird? At some point, there's gonna be some permeation of information. You
Hmm.
know, I feel like they're just like so overly confident that there's not gonna
Yeah.
be any reintegration or anything like that happening accidentally. Like they're so confident about it that it's
Hmm.
insane. And with the character of Helena, by the way, she's doing the most evil shit while at the same time putting herself in the same fucking position. And it's when they showed her having a conversation with her dad, like, bitch, do you really need your dad's approval that much
Yeah. Do
that
you
you
really
will
need,
sever yourself?
yeah, do you really need Papa's approval like that? God, these are
Like,
like these are like the dumb struggles.
can anybody
Sorry.
say desperate?
Yeah.
Anyone?
I was gonna be like
Like, that's
these
just so funny to me.
I was gonna be like, this is like the dumb struggles. Uh-oh.
So we're having some technical difficulties. My assistant cannot connect to her internet or do anything. So I'm gonna have to finish the episode by myself. And there's like a few things that we're gonna discuss about Ben Stiller. The fact of the matter is, the guy who actually wrote it, I think, is Dan Erickson. Ben, once again, same old story. Supporter of the apartheid state. You know, I'm really getting tired of people not being politically consistent. I feel like they're all a bit too old to say that they don't know what's going on, or to assume that they don't understand how it's ridiculous that they're making shows like Severance while at the same time completely not understanding their own position in the world. It's really baffling. It's the same conversation that we had in a video that I've made about the Hunger Games and the creators of Hunger Games, especially the director and whatever. It's one of those things where like I can't not mention it, but at the same time, I'm so tired of them being like this, and I'm especially tired of constantly having to fucking police people, because just why do you have to be like that? The inhuman kind of approach to everything is just like really getting on my nerves, and I don't even know what we're supposed to do about this. If you guys have any thoughts on this exhaustion of constantly not even being able to engage with entertainment because of how many people are constantly involved in all of this bullshit, what do you think? Are you thinking about those things? If so, let me know what you're thinking about it. I would really love to see opinions on this. Sorry for the abrupt type of ending. There's a lot more that we need to discuss when it comes to season 2, and about I assume that a lot of the topics that we kind of touched on, like for example the four tempers or whatever the fuck, they're gonna be maybe expanded upon in season 2, or maybe it was just a random metaphor just thrown in. We'll see. Consistently trying to talk about anything but the political socioeconomic state of the world. I'm kind of performing Severance on my own damn self, where like I'm trying to compartmentalize and it's just not working. And I wonder how you guys are dealing with it. What are your approaches to it? Because I really don't know how to go about it. I don't feel like, giving up into anti-intellectualism for the sake of being able to get through days. I think it's not fair to anyone to have to dumb yourself down, or to ignore things, or to do the whole severance thing, basically, where you try to separate the world so much that it's kind of dehumanizing each part of you. Let me know what you think about that, if you've been thinking about it. And we'll see you in the next episode, and also in the extra episodes on Patreon. There's a couple of episodes we filmed. They're going to be out this week. They are mostly about music. Here's me trying to be positive corner. There's not a lot, but there's this performance by Hoop Anya. Well, it would be long, with me, yeah, me singing. I'm gonna cut off the music quite early on when I'm going to be showing this because it's copyrighted, but you should go check it out. It's quite funny. Paparazzi video that always makes me laugh whenever I stumble upon it. And it is this Hailey Baldwin paparazzi moment where she's walking past them.
Gigi, who's your new boyfriend after Joe Jonas? Bella?
She's literally walking towards the car, and they're like, oh, how's your boyfriend Gigi, or some shit like that. And she's like, I'm not Gigi. And then the paparazzi who's holding the fucking camera is like, Bella? And then this video of some guy performing Gucci flip-flops by Bad Baby for President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Gucci flip-flops, fucking hit your bitch in my socks. This is a big watch, diamonds dripping off of the clock.
We should do more of that, I think. Have a good day, you guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.